Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Vishwam Darpana Dishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nujantargatam Pashyanat Manimaya Bahirivut Bhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaitam Shri Dakshina Murtaye. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So I thought we would no longer play the song by this lady, Gaya Sanskrit, but let's continue on. She's a very pleasant voice. So let's, for a few more weeks, Gabriela, let's continue that for a couple of more weeks. Let's see how that goes.
यज्जाग्रतो दूरमुदैति दैवं तदु सुप्तस्य तथैवैति दूरङ्गमं ज्योतिषां ज्योतिरेकं तन्मे मनः शिवसङ्कल्पमस्तु येन कर्माण्यपसो मनीषिणो यज्ञे कृण्वन्ति विदधेषु धीराः यदपूर्वं यक्षमन्तः प्रजानां तन्मे मनः शिवसङ्कल्पमस्तु यत्प्रज्ञानमुत चेतो धृतिश्च यज्ज्योतिरन्तरमृतं प्रजासु यस्मान्नऋते किञ्चन कर्म क्रियते तन्मे मनः शिवसङ्कल्पमस्तु येनेदं भूतं भुवनं भविष्यत् परिगृहीतममृतेन सर्वं येन यज्ञस्तायते सप्तहोता तन्मे मनः शिवसङ्कल्पमस्तु यस्मिन् ऋचः सामयजूगुंषि यस्मिन् प्रतिष्ठिता रथनाभाविवाराः यस्मिन् कश्चित्तगुं सर्वमोतं प्रजानां तन्मे मनः शिवसङ्कल्पमस्तु सुषारथिरश्वानि वयन्मनुष्यान्ने नीयते भीषुभिर्वाजिन इव हृत्प्रतिष्ठं यदजिरञ्जविष्ठं तन्मे मनः शिवसङ्कल्पमस्तु
Hopefully you are practicing chanting and or have memorized most of it by now. And again, I think a good practice would be to start the morning by listening to Gabriella and then chanting yourself. So that would have a lot of benefits, really speaking, because as we will, what this 6 chants provides us with the facility is that we are very used to seeing things as things in the world. Drishya Rupa experience we are very used to. And in the Drishya Rupa experience, even our mental thoughts also come in that manner. So we will say, for example, even if your eyes are closed when you get up in the morning, you'll just say, okay, what do I need to do today? Oh yeah, I forgot. Let me check my email. So like that, you have thoughts going on. You're not seeing anything, but you're observing your thoughts in terms of what you have to do, what this world is about. And then you're busy with it the whole day. Something lead to the other. You have to have breakfast, and then you have to leave your children or grandchildren to school. Yeah, that's what goes on. So the whole day you are really involved in the transactions that you see outside in the world. That's what our life is. But what needs to be done, at least initially, it has to be done somewhat deliberately, and over time it should become a habit, and over time it should become an obsession, really, which is not to see things that you are experiencing, but to be cognizant of how you see them. How you see them. It is the entire spectrum of thoughts that have to do with the seer, not the seen. So, on paper it looks very simple. Pardon me. So on paper it looks very simple that you have, the seer-seen relationships. And then in the books also you say that Sakshi is the seer. So, we have classes on meditation, on the meditator, and so on and so forth. So your feeling is that it is pretty simple. I don't know what else do I have to do. I'm seeing things, so what? But what happens is that the examination, a survey, an understanding of how this thing takes place, how the seer-seen relationship is, how these things emanate from me, is very beneficial and not that easy. There's a lot to learn, just like you and I have a lot to learn about the world. We have, this is one of the things, as you grow up, you're slowly educated on how to learn about the world, how to cope up with it, etc. So that one we are used to. But what we are not taught and we are not used to is to understand how this whole process is taking place. So in advanced Vedanta, they say it's about time that you really start investing in examining who you really are. How does this thing happening? Not just I'm a Sakshi, but the entire gamut of responsibility, or not responsibility, gamut of possibilities that make it occur. This is the quest of Paramatma. This is to understand what Ishvara is, how he operates through you as an Antaryami. There's a lot to learn. Therefore, and these 6 very beautiful verses enable us to turn the attention to myself, the seer, how I operate, how I get misled. So this is also, so there are maybe there's multiple, but at least 2 main things that we should think about. One is how is I'm involved in this process, remaining the same. I'm seeing a lot of things and not recognizing myself, who I am. This is a tragedy, really. Time is passing. The whole life was meant for that purpose, and I didn't even get started. And I have a lot to do. So, Tan me manat Shiva Sankalpamastu means turn to yourself. See the Shiva in yourself. A lot of things to do. This is number 1. Okay, so there are 2 things I think, there are 2 things that you will benefit a lot in starting the day with chanting these 6 verses, and also trying to understand the meaning of them. So one of them is to really turn the attention on the seer, not the seen. This is one thing. The second thing I think is equally important is that you look upon, by the very actions that you take, tan me manaha Shiva Sankalpamastu, means you address your mind, and in the process of addressing the mind, you look at it realistically. How? Because the mind, as we have talked about it many, many times, is one of the finest instruments that each one of us possesses. Finest instrument. But it's an instrument. It's not me. Like your car is an instrument, the car is not you. So therefore, the second most important thing in getting to the habit of chanting these verses, very first thing in the morning, and then hopefully carrying it through the day. So this is the thing, it's a short-ended trip. It's really like 14 hours. You don't have to, this Sankalpa doesn't have to be, just like we do the New Year Sankalpa. It doesn't have to be a full year. It's just one day. You start from finish, you do a Sankalpa. And listen, I would like you to focus on Shiva. So in doing so, you address your mind and rightly put it at its spot, which is it's an instrument. Instead, if you don't do that, what happens is you cannot distinguish, you do not distinguish between you and your mind. It all becomes one. That's a misuse of the instrument. So a proper placement, I would say, is the word that I would use. A proper placement of who you are and who is the instrument is an important aspect of it. So in chanting this, it enables you to start the day by putting the mind in its spot. Listen, I recognize you as an instrument, and I hope I know how you work, and I hope that you can slowly transform your nature to help me reach what I'm really looking for. So, putting that distance between you and the mind, because otherwise, you read a book and say, you're not the mind, your mind is an instrument, and so on. You read it and then you forget about it, and for the rest of the time, you're still behaving as though you are the mind. But taking some time to sort of addressing the mind, and I think one of the good things is that in these 6 verses, as we will see, you detail, because the mind also doesn't believe you. Your mind will say, this guy is going to forget it pretty soon. It's okay. Okay, let him just say that, we have so many songs, so many things addressing Manaha. If you just look at least in India, when in Hindustani songs, filmy songs, oh Manaha, please look at Ishvara and so on. It's all kind of nice. Sometimes it's songs, and so the mind says, this guy is not very serious. It's okay. Let me just. But if you take these verses and understand, by addressing the mind, I know how you work. I know how you work. And I am hoping that you and I as a partnership, myself and you as an instrument, will go in the right direction. So the mind takes you more seriously if you recognize exactly who the mind is. So anyway, some of those things. And so in the very first verse, Yat Jagrato Duram Udaiti Daivam Tadu Suptasya Tathaiveti. It says you recognize how the mind takes you away from yourself. So it's like saying, hey mind, I have come to recognize your pattern. Your pattern is that as soon as I open my eyes in the morning, instead of just dwelling in on myself, you take me away from myself. You have that capability, and I'm following you, and I am lost in the world, in examining the world and enjoying it or suffering, whatever it is. I know how you do it. Now I know how you do it. And then, when you're all done, you come back to me at night. This is how your travels are during the day. And as a result of the travels, you're taking it away from me. I'm also traveling with you. I have no idea about the fact that I am not a traveler. I cannot travel. Like Akasha cannot travel. Only a car Akasha, car space can travel, but not space. And car space is nothing but space. So if I recognize that I am the total space, not the car space, then I know that I don't travel. But you fool me into believing that I am also traveling. and you take me far away from myself. And then at the end, tatu suptasya tatha eva eti. Similarly, as it goes out, it also comes back. So by doing that, you say, I see how you work. I see your pattern. So this was discussed in the last week. And then also one very important thing, I think, that we are going to really spend more time examining. But it was introduced briefly in the very first verse itself, which is this. And this I'm just revising at this point. That different from how it is initially introduced to you, the drik and the drishya, the seer and the seen, are not vijatiya, it is sajatiya. They do not belong to a different family, because in the beginning and intermediate levels of Vedanta, it is pointed out that the drik and drishya cannot be any more dissimilar. They're very, very dissimilar. Drik doesn't change, drishya is continuously changing. Drik was never born, drishya is continuously born. So they belong to completely different species as though. So in the beginning, it is in fact appropriate that this introduction of drik and drishya are classified as vijatiya. Because to even begin to understand what the two are, you have to make that viveka, as we saw in the Saturday class also. However, the teaching of Vedanta in that manner changes its stripes. Why? Because an understanding of Dvaita meaning duality, meaning the drik and drishya are in a different family. So this is what is called vijatiya. Jati means a family, and vijatiya means different families. So they belong to different families, it's very obvious. But this is temporary. As Swami Maheshananji had pointed out earlier, and Swami Khandananda also, that in the beginning, when complicated math is to be explained, it first has to be done in very simple terms. Suppose you have 5 apples, and then you give one apple to somebody else, and then you give another 2, another 2, 3. You're all 5 or whatever it is, it's all good done. Now you have nothing left. So to understand subtraction and addition and so on, this make-believe world has to be done. So a student can come up and say, I don't have 5 apples. What are you talking about? He says, no, I understand you don't have 5 apples. I can give it to you if you want, but just pretend you have 5 apples. And the student, the little kid says, okay, it's difficult for me to do that. How many did you say? 5. Okay, 5. Then you take away how many are left. So do that, arithmetic in mind is not easy, so the youngster will try it. It looks like what? How can that not be done? You try it with a 2-year-old, and you take away 3, add 3, and they're confused. How? What are you talking about? 3 and then... But pretty soon, the advanced math is that you can do mathematical formula all in the mind. It started out with 0, it ended up with 0. You had no apples in the beginning, And after you distributed them all, nothing is left. It all makes sense. Yes. So similarly here also, Drik and Drishya initially are Vijatiya, because we are really toddlers when it comes to spiritual knowledge, is what happens. Why? Because everything is all mixed up. Me and the world. Where is I? Where is the world? We draw a boundary at the wrong place. All kinds of strange, not strange, but erroneous things take place. So at first to do, you have to do viveka. And when you do viveka, then you do duality. And so now we've got an issue that there's an atma and there's an anatma, there is a drik and a drishya, and the two are different, and so on. Then the advanced teaching starts to work. And the advanced teaching says, wait. You know what I told you, that they are all different from each other? Set that aside. That's not true. They actually belong to the same family. Drik and Drishya are not fundamentally different. They are part of the same family. And that's what we went through some explanation on how this Ishvara's creation is made, that unless all the aspects of the seer and seen belong to the same family, it cannot happen. So that's why the eyes cannot hear, because they don't belong to the same family. Eyes can only see rupas, and ears can only hear sound. They're all in the same family. So here, the Drik and the Drishya, my mind and myself, are in the same family. Same family means what? Are there some segmentation within the family? Like there is a brother and a sister and so on, they all belong to the same family? They say, not really. There's actually non-duality. We are just talking gradually that they are in the same family, but there is Vijatiya Bheda, no Sajatiya Bheda, no Swagata Bheda. Nothing. There's no Bheda. It's all one. How is that possible? I don't get it. So they say, you're right, start with that. We went into some detail on it, and I don't want to really sidetrack on it. It's a very deep subject that I'll come back to it in the Mandukya Karika. But basically, just to reiterate, the nature of you and I is we are Satchidananda. We are Satswarupa. We are Chitswarupa, Anandaswarupa, Satyam Jnanam Anantam. We are Satswarupa. You should know this. Why? Because the only thing which is Satswarupa, whatever is Satswarupa can never be negated. This is the key, can never be negated. Is there something in the whole world that can never be negated? It's you. This is an amazing fact, one that we overlook completely. And even when we feel that I am not always there, I make a mistake because I keep thinking about my body-mind complex. No. You as a Sakshi is Satswarupa. Never not there. Not possible not to be there. Even if you try, you cannot not be there. And also Chit Swarupa, I know. You think about this in a quiet moment. Just see yourself. I am Sat Swarupa. And in fact, you are the only thing that is Sat Swarupa. Because everything else is yet to be proven. See, this is an important distinction. Very important distinction. So look at this one. When you assume there are things, even in Ishvara, by the way, even the concept of Ishvara, possibility of Ishvara, God, and everything else along with it is really a figment of your imagination. It's a figment of your imagination because you don't have sakshat aparokshat. There's a possibility that it might happen, but it hasn't happened. And it may never happen. Instead, the only solid proof you have is about yourself. Sat Swarupa. Nothing else is Sat Swarupa. You see, that's another thing. Nothing else can be Sat Swarupa. Because at this moment, from your standpoint, everything has to be from your standpoint. From your standpoint, it is not there at the moment. Even God is a possibility. But you are not a possibility. So, sometimes it's so amazing that science criticizes religion and spirituality. And it criticizes it on the basis that, no, I don't know what they're talking about. That's all mumbo jumbo. You have to prove it right here. And unless you prove it, we don't accept it. It's not scientific. This is what is said. You know what the real argument should be? Just the opposite. The only solid proof you have, which is not a possibility, but just a reality. If you want to call it scientific reality, call it scientific reality. Doesn't matter what you call it. But the only proof you have is that you are Sat Swarupa. So think about it. Do an experiment. Please write to me an email and saying, do you know what? This morning I found I was not there. So what you said in the class last night, on the Tuesday night class, doesn't hold. Because this morning I was not there for 2 hours. Or let's forget about 2 hours. I was not there for 2 minutes. And so there, your theory doesn't hold water. And you know what I will ask you is, how do you know you were not there? Either you're making it up, or you don't know what you're talking about. It is not possible for anything to for the Sakshi to disappear at all, because it is not dependent on anything. That is the very Swarupa of the Sakshi, which is Sat Swarupa. Amazing thing. Think about that. So just do a day-long survey, if you want, about yourself. Is there any time that I am not there? Is there any time or place that I am not there? Because any time or place where you feel you are not there, you as a conscious person have to be there to ascertain that I am not here. You cannot negate yourself. Nahi drishtuhu drashtuhu drishtehi viparilopa vidyate. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. You cannot do it. And in fact, that is the only Sat Swarupa there is. Only Chit Swarupa there is. Both are the same. You cannot be Chit Swarupa unless you are Sat Swarupa. And you cannot be Sat Swarupa unless you are Chit Swarupa. And then I think the very important thing is Ananta. Ananta. Because one of the corollaries of this is, I recall that, I'm just pausing. I remember the time when Swamiji was teaching, Swami Dayanandji was teaching Taittiriya Upanishad. So he was explaining these facts. And I had problems in understanding Anantam, Anantatvam. The fact that it has no boundaries. Yeah, I think Swamiji must have, tried his own way to. But then I think sometimes the teachers say, I've done my best. The student will think about it, and they will figure it out. And that's what happened. Finally, I figured it out. And what I figured out was that if I am Sat Swarupa, I don't see any boundaries that will prevent me from Sat Swarupa. If I am really Sat Swarupa, if my nature is truth, I am, I know and I am. This thought of I know and I am, does it have any ends? It is Anantam. So the very nature of the Sakshi is, it is a seer all the time. And also that is Anantam. So why am I saying that is because, I'll come back to the main subject matter, is that really, even when I am looking around in the world, experiencing, I am Sat Swarupa. You have to see this for yourself. And that being the case, the whole world is nothing but really the Sakshi, the seer. So you will say, what? What did you just say? I can understand the fact up to a point that I am the Sat Swarupa, I am Chit Swarupa, I am Ananta. But how did you suddenly say that the whole world is also nothing but just nothing but a Sakshi alone? That that's not understandable. But on deep thought, it is understandable. And it starts with the assertion that Drik and drishya are sajatiya, not vijatiya. How? So, suppose you look at yourself standing in a pool of water which has reflective properties. You see another thing outside so the appearance is that in fact it is outside, not only that, it is opposite to what you are. If you do the right hand this way, it will just give you the mirror image of yourself, the left hand that way. And so this is what you see. Now, your eyes are looking at your reflection, but the eyes do not conclude whether this is a separate person or not. There, the mind has to play a role in the conclusion of, is this another person or not? And if the mind is not developed, you don't think about the other reflection as being the same as you, like in the case of animals or a small child. They get confused by looking at themselves in the mirror. So the images they see is the same as you and I see as adults, but their conclusion is completely different, that it's a different person altogether. And when the mind gets developed enough, there can be obstructions. In fact, there are two basic kinds of obstructions if you're looking at your reflection in a pool of water. One is that the water is very dirty, not clean. There's a lot of tamas, in which case it won't reflect you. Just like a wall cannot reflect you. Only a polished mirror can reflect you. So similarly, a clean water has the ability to reflect you. The second thing is that the clean water, if it is wavy, there's a lot of wind, your image will be so cut up that you cannot identify yourself. But if your mind is developed, and if the mind is clean and it is not wavy, then what you see is an image of yourself, and that image is a conclusion which is, this is my reflection alone. I alone am. I may appear to be someone else, but I cannot be fooled. This is just me. There's only me. So extending this further, what happens is that my mind is like a pool of water. It is a reflecting surface. And I, the Satsvarupa, Chitsvarupa, normally when my mind is not developed enough. So here the mind is playing multiple roles. The buddhi, you can say even buddhi, yeah, so let's do that. So let the mind behave like yad jagrato duramudaitis daivam tadu suptasya tataivaiti. Let it be the one who takes me away from myself. Let it be. But the buddhi, the viveka buddhi, now has to make a conclusion. Initially it says, this is not me. This is the outside world. But with a buddhi which has been well chiseled, clean, and so on, we look upon the mind and say, my goodness, this is my own reflection. It appears that somebody else is doing things, but in fact it is me. And so this is also very true in the case of the dream, that I alone act as a bhokta, as a karta, even though it looks different from me. So therefore, the sakshi and the mind initially are vijatiya, then they become sajatiya, and then upon further reflection you say that really what I am looking at is nothing but me alone. These are the stages of our understanding that will happen. At this stage, it may not be apparent to either you or I, not convincing enough. But these are the doubts that I have to slowly take away by providing a little shraddha towards the Mahatmas and say, yes, this is the process. And start on this process. Do not cling on to the fact that initial stages you have drik drishya viveka, they don't agree with each other and so on and so forth. No, that's all temporary. It's all sajatiya, and even swagata bheda remains to be eliminated. So anyway, so that took a little longer time that I took to elaborate on that very important point, I tell you. This is just certainly my own thinking was not really as focused until I understood this sajatiya, vijatiya. And this is Swami Akhandananda's. I didn't quite understand that before. So, okay, so now so that part is done with the first line, and more than a lot of other things also were talked about in the first line. Now to continue our inquiry, that what has to happen is a examination of not the drik, not just the drashta and the drik and the drishya, but really more on how the process takes place. This has to be understood, okay? So let's start on that. So it says that if you say that drik and drishya are in the same family, then how did the drik became the drishya? Or did the drik become the drishya or not? Because if it did not become the drishya, or if it became the drishya, it lost its initial form and became a drishya. Drishya means a seen object. So this transformation, this karya karana bhava, how did it take place within the same family? Does this mean that the drashta, the seer, is a parinami? Does it have the ability to give up its initial form and take on a new form? So it becomes drishya. And so the very famous example in Vedanta is, the parinama is, say, milk becoming yogurt or milk becoming ghee, where they belong to the same family, but the milk transforms itself by giving up its original form into a new form. Is this how it takes place? Because if you're telling me you have to accept one or the other. Either you say that they are of a different family, or if you insist on giving the fact that they are the same family, then how does this transformation takes place within the same family? So there we say that this karya karana bhava, this concept of karana means a cause, karya means an effect. So the cause-effect relationship is of two types. We all know this, but this is to make sure that we fully understand all aspects of that. So one is what is called parinami karanam. The other one is called vivarta karanam. So it doesn't mean that everything has to be a parinami. You are assuming that milk transforming into yogurt is the only example. It isn't. There's something more subtle going on, and this happens in real life also. Real life meaning in the sense of our transactional experiences, that you can have a lump of clay that can form some kind of some cup or some plate or something like this, but without giving up its original form. So this is what, as you know, is called vivarta upadana karanam. And so here it says that the ekata anantata of Brahman, when it is seen as anekata parichinnaha, it is not parinama, it is vivarta. Here's what we have to see. In the case of a clay becoming cups, or in the case of a gold becoming ornaments, it's very easy to see, because it's a very limited way where the adhara, the very subject matter, which is not subject matter, but the very basis of the ornaments is gold, and I can see how the gold can seemingly transform itself into very good shapes, but never really changes. This I can see. But I don't understand how I am the Ananta Brahman, because I see a lot of variety that obstructs my mind to say that it is really the same thing. You know, we didn't say that it was as easy as that. This is really the whole Leela. This is the Shrishti of Ishvara, that it doesn't even look like the original. You're so enabled by, your mind is so enabled by going into the details of the world that it doesn't look like it's the same thing. But it is. It is. It's the same thing. So this is what the mind has to do. And so the same mind that goes away and makes my appearance as though this is not me anymore, I'm somebody completely different, I'm taken away from it, that mind comes back to me at the end of the day and rests with me. And I now recognize how it works, what is its role in my relationship with it, as we discussed earlier. And once I recognize and I see it day after day, I am sure this is what is happening. And I can call it the way I can see it now. That it is like a bird that flies away but comes back to rest at the same. This was said in the Chandogya Upanishad. It says, Yatha sutrena prabadhaha shakuni disham disham patitvat anyatra ayatanam alabdhatvat sabandhanam eva upashrayate. Beautiful. He says, Yatha sutrena prabadhaha shakuni. So shakuni is a type of a bird that has been bound by some kind of a string on its legs, because it's such a valuable bird that the owner of the bird cannot afford to let it fly away. Tragedy really, it just allows it to fly away up to a certain point. So just like the shakuni, which is bound by sutra, by some kind of a tying thread, disham patitvat. Sometimes it's going to the west, sometimes it's going to the east, sometimes north, goes away all over. Anyatra ayatanam alabdhatvat. It doesn't rest anywhere because it's flying all over. In the end, saha bandhanam eva upashrayate. So it comes back to rest where it began. Exactly how the mind works also, that it is really tied to me and it goes around all kinds of, then takes me along with it, because I am unable to see what I am, that I am not a movable thing. And so it just takes it away from me. But then it comes back to me. Why? Because it is it started with me and comes back to me. It goes around, knocking around, looking at things, experiencing things and so on. But at the end, it comes back where it started from, which is me. This is how the mind works. And so now, in the next few minutes, we will just finish the second line, and then we will go to the next verse next time. Okay? So the second line says, Duram gaman jyotisham jyotihi ekam tanme mana Shiva Sankalpamastu. So he says, so this is the second line that begins to transform your examination of not drishya but to the drik, as we talked about earlier. And how it does it is to say, this duram gamam, this one that goes far away from me, takes me away from me. Yat jagrato duram udaiti. This duram gaman is jyotisham jyoti. So jyotisham means duram gamam jyotisham. Jyoti here means to an awareful experience. All experiences are awareful alone, just to indicate that experiences are made out of nothing but conscious efforts, consciousness. So the conscious experience which appears to be far. Like for instance, you can imagine the moon. And the moment you imagine the moon, your thoughts have gone to the moon. Duram gaman. So this is a jyoti, which is a light of the mind, which allow it to be lighting up different objects in my experience. And those lights, are they self-generating? Are they different? Or is it really the same light which goes far and comes back? It's the same light. You may find that there is an electric fan which looks totally different from a heater. Or from a washing machine. We all have different things. So there it is, the same electricity that allows the fan to rotate, the air conditioner and the heater to operate, and the washing machine to operate. Is it not the same one? Or is it all isolated electricity? No. This is what's called Jyotisham Jyoti. So this is the transformation without a transformation. When the light becomes endowed with an appliance, it behaves like an appliance, but without ever giving up its own form. So in my experience, I am the very light. When you do this survey during a whole day, look at this. The Sat Swarupa, Chit Swarupa, this is the light of consciousness, which is always there. And this is the one that lights up different things in my world. Same light. See how this thing works? See how the Sakshi becomes kind of like Drishya. So even in our daily experience, we see that, I think Swami Maheshanandaji had said that. He says, please tell me what is this? So somebody would said, your left hand? No, describe everything that you see. Well, I see that your finger, you've got 5 fingers, you have the ability to make a fist, and from the appearance looks like the left hand. Anything else? He says, no, I don't, there's no, what do you mean? I don't understand anything else. Do you not see the light falling on it? Oh, okay, yeah. So it's the same light that falls on the different objects and becomes it becomes so endowed with the object that you cannot even distinguish between the light and the object. It's a lighted object. So this is how my experiences work. That I am the same light. Tat duram gamam jyotisham jyotihi ekam. So now we can summarize the whole verse and conclude with it. And it says, O mind, I know how you work. You go far away and you take me along with it. And you move around the whole day with experience after experience after experience. And then when it's time to go to sleep, you come back to me as though. And you stay with me. And even though you are apparently going far, but it is the same conscious entity that appears to go far. The conscious entity does not change. It is just vivarta. So the electricity does not get transformed into an appliance. It stays rooted to its own nature, even though it appears to be rooted to an appliance. Similarly, O mind, I know you're going away during the day, and you come back to me at night. I know that. I know how you work, and you take me away from myself, and then you bring back to myself. May I please get your cooperation to focus on your very capable mind. May I please ask you to focus yourself into looking at the Shiva that I am, which is the Jyotisham Jyoti. It's the same thing. Duram gamam Jyotisham Jyoti ekam. There's only one Jyoti in the whole world. At least there can be different electricity grids, but conscious is the same conscious. Jnanam, Satyam Jnanam Anantam, which is nothing but Brahman, which is nothing but Shiva. May I please request you to start Sankalpa on this amazing fact. So that's kind of like the meaning of the first verse. And now they have completed it. We'll go to the next verse next time. Okay, so we'll stop the class today with that. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishte. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Great, good, good. Thank you all for watching and attending this class. And I appreciate your loyalty to this class. It also helps me to think about these things and share with you. So it certainly is very helpful to me as well to read and to absorb and to express it and to share. Makes my understanding also a little bit clearer. So appreciate your studentship, and we will continue to follow through with all 6 verses. All right. Hari Om.